Yo, what is up everyone, it's TyranitarTube and welcome back to another Pokemon Sun and Moon video. The trailer just dropped showing freaking everything that we know, man. We got different forms in Sun and Moon, we got new Pokemon, we got a different system introduced that probably rival gym leaders in Elite Four, and all of it was pretty vague in the trailer, but they go in detail in the site. So if you haven't seen the trailer, which is freaking amazing, go check it out. I already made a reaction to it, but this video, we're gonna look in detail on everything they revealed. So let's start off with, of course, the freaking best thing in that trailer, the Alolan Pokemon. So Pokemon native to Alola. Now, for certain reasons, the 5 Pokemon you see on my screen, they went to the Alola region. They migrated to the Alola region, and it changed the way they live. And because of that, they essentially became a different Pokemon. So this Sandshrew here, it's usually supposed to be in the desert, like freaking scratching the sand all day. But for some reason, it's now steel and ice, meaning that it went to some like snowy place, and they give details to what happened to these Pokemon. So I want to start off in order. So let's start off with the Exeggutor. So Alolan Exeggutor is a different form of Exeggutor, so it's of course still the coconut Pokemon, but it's a freaking grass dragon type. It's 35 feet tall and it weighs 1,000 pounds. Apparently the people of Alola actually boast that Alolan Exeggutors are the true form of an Exeggutor because it's longer, it's a freaking dragon type, it's massive and strong, and this happens when an Exeggutor goes to the Alola region where there's such strong sunlight that it actually evolves it a bit further. Apparently it brings a change in Exeggutor's form. So when Exeggutor actually traveled to the Alola region, the stronger sunlight actually changed the way they look, and I wouldn't think about it as a further evolution like the people in Alola boast. You'd think of it as a different or an alternative evolution. So it grew one way or it grew the other way. It got a big nose or it just gets fat. Unlike the other Exeggutor, the Alolan Exeggutor has a 4th head on its tail. This 4th head controls the tail independently and can take on opponents to the rear that can't be reached by the main head's attacks. I mean, it kind of makes sense. With its head there, it literally can't do anything. It's just a tree. So with its tail, it actually sort of gets a freaking dominant hand. Alolan Exeggutors excel at whipping its long neck like a lash to attack with its hard heads, but apparently that neck can sometimes be a weakness. So here you got a comparison of the classic. So, oh my god, that's so classic. The classic Exeggutor artwork, and of course the Alolan Exeggutor. You could see, I actually thought classic Exeggutor had 4 heads, but it's 3 and 3, and it really does grow a bit further and grow a tail. So in this case, because Exeggutor actually grows further, you could say that Alolan Exeggutor is further evolved. Like, I'm pretty sure the stats would be different too. Like, this Exeggutor would have a lot of special attack, when the Alolan Exeggutor would have like massive physical attack. So moving on is the Alolan Vulpix. It's a fox Pokemon, it's a pure ice type, and it's so freaking beautiful, dude. I swear whenever you see fan art like this, you don't say I wish Game Freak did this because it's so out of the freaking picture. But they actually introduced climate changed Pokemon, alternate form Pokemon, and now you got a snow Vulpix and the majestic Ninetales. We'll get to the Ninetales, but this Vulpix is so cool. So it said that Vulpix came to the Alola region together with humans, but the fox Pokemon moved to the snowy mountain peaks to avoid the normal habitats of other Pokemon. And then after a while it took the form of a snowy Vulpix. These Alolan Vulpix live on high mountains that remain covered in snow year round. So Alolan Vulpix actually live in thick snow. They live on high mountains and they live in packs to 2 to 5. It's hilarious that it really does sound like they take on like the instincts of a wolf. Lives in the snow, lives in packs to 2 to 5. But anyway, here's the most important part. Alolan Vulpix can freeze anything solid by expelling a breath at a temperature of -58 degrees Fahrenheit from its mouth. And it actually doesn't fare well in the heat. And when the temperature gets too high, it produces ice from its tail to lower the surrounding temperature. This is a freaking flip of a normal Vulpix, or a normal freaking, look at that! I'm so glad they did that comparison. Look at that. It goes from individual tails to a snowy branch of tails, and the fluff on its head is just freaking snow. That is so cute. It's sort of like an evolution now that I think about it. It's really cool that it doesn't just change, but it essentially really does become a different Pokemon. Like, this thing can't stand the heat. Like, if this thing met another Vulpix, it would hate it. It would hate to freaking go to its house. But Vulpix evolves into freaking Alolan Ninetales. That is amazing. That is like all the majestic pieces of like a Milotic, a freaking Suicune, and a Ninetales. Everything. But it freaking gets better. It's a fox Pokemon, but it's an ice fairy type. A freaking ice fairy type. Like, I can't believe that this really feels like a Delta Pokemon. They really introduced alternate form Pokemon that are exactly like Delta Pokemon. A freaking Sand Grimer that lives in the desert. Well, now you got a freaking Ice Fairy Ninetales. It's got the ability Snow Cloak, which I thought if Ninetales were to get a frozen form, it would be the opposite of Flash Fire. So maybe in this game, there isn't an ice counterpart to Flash Fire, or else they would have used it here. Don't worry, there's gonna freaking be, like, imagine a snow warning Alolan Ninetales. Go Ninetales, the freaking blizzard comes out. That is freaking revolutionary. Alolan Ninetales live on a snowy peak that is revered in the Alola region as a holy mountain. Of course, it's a freaking fairy type. They're treated as sacred emissaries, and people meet them with awe and fear. This Pokemon's personality is extremely gentle, and at times it has helped humans who seem to be in distress. However, it shows no mercy at all to anyone or anything that dares to damage its territory. So like the Vulpix, the Alolan Ninetales is able to produce ice crystals, not just frost breath, but ice crystals from the fur of its body. It can use these ice crystals to block attacks, or it can form balls with them. So like the way you would think a Pokemon uses Ice Beam, it would use the freaking Ice Beam that it summons to help it. It can even fire the ice balls like bullets at its opponent. The power of these ice missiles is great enough to pulverize rock. Look at that comparison. That is so cool. I feel like this should have been hyped up more. This is something I'm so excited about. Okay, this is so cool. And this as well, it's not like a Vulpix can evolve into either a Fire Ninetales or a Snow Ninetales. There's an entire evolution line for the snowiness. And the point I'm going to get to is I think that if a Vulpix migrates somewhere and they start to adapt, they will take on this form. It's not something that happens over time. This is an alternate form to these Pokemon that they take on once they start adapting in different climates. So like Pokemon Insurgents, when the Grimers started adapting to the climate in the desert, it became a pure ground type. It didn't become poison ground. It didn't merge. It entirely became a different Pokemon. A different form was achieved. So that's what I'm thinking of this. I feel like the Vulpix you're gonna find in the Alola region is for the most part gonna be the snowy Vulpix, but if you were to trade that Vulpix over to like X and Y or something, it would become a Fire Vulpix, which is so cool. And I don't think it's an issue where like the Fire Vulpix or Ninetales don't exist in Sun and Moon. It's just that it's not gonna be common, or you gotta go to like the outskirts of the freaking island to find them. I don't mind this being common though. And moving on to Alolan Sandshrew. It's the mouse Pokemon. It's Ice Steel. It went from ground to Ice Steel. This thing, oh my god. And it also has Snow Cloak. There has to be hidden abilities. So Sandshrew have historically lived in desert areas, but after a series of just frequent eruptions at a nearby volcano, the Sandshrew were driven out of the desert and into the snowy mountains, where they started taking on this form. Sandshrew's body changed to adapt to the harsh environment of the snowy mountains. The Pokemon they've shown here are all Pokemon that have had trouble probably adapting to their new form. So like, how does a ground Sandshrew have the ability to adapt in like a blizzard storm enough to become an Ice Steel type? Like, they're showing that Pokemon has to go through the hardships and adapt well enough to start taking on this form, and it'll start actually being able to live in the snow. Its heavyweight makes the Alolan Sandshrew slower than the normal Sandshrew, but the claws on its hand and feet allow it to move across ice without slipping. So this confirms that the Alolan Pokemon have different stats, or can have different stats. So dude, imagine a Mega Alolan Sandslash. Here's the comparison. You can see it actually is a bit chubbier. It's a bit actually more bulky. It looks chubby. It actually looks like the ice on its back is gonna turn into a shell, and then boom, Squirtle's born. Listen, we need a Blastoise that is steel as well. Wait, when it wants to move quickly, it can use its stomach to slide across the ice like a curling rock. So this thing takes on freaking penguin instincts, while Vulpix the fox takes on the wolf instincts. The freaking Sandshrew mouse takes on a penguin instinct. And of course, the Alolan Sandslash, the best I don't know if this is better than the Ninetales, but F it is. The Alolan Sandslash, the most badass Pokemon ever. It is an Ice Steel type, just like the Sandshrew, but this thing, just looking at it, I want it on my team. The Alolan Sandshrew of the snowy mountains evolve into Alolan Sandslash with spiny backs that are covered in ice. Thanks to their icy coating, the spikes are actually larger and sharper. Alolan Sandslash hide themselves in the snow when strong enemies appear, leaving only their needles exposed. Freaking ready for business. That's so sick. It's a porcupine. How did I forget Sandslash is a porcupine? Maybe because it says mouse. The weight of the ice that covers its body makes these Alolan Sandslash heavier than normal Sandslash, and this causes them to be slower. So just like the Sandshrew, this thing's gonna be less speedy and more like physical attack and physical defense. The sprays of snow kicked up by Alolan Sandslash's movements are so beautiful that many photographers head to the snowy peaks to capture the moment. However, the deep mountains that the Sandslash lives in is apparently so freaking dangerous that it's forbidden to climb. Look at this comparison. I like that they're actually being realistic ballistic. So because his spikes are covered in ice, yeah, they got the coating, so they're gonna be freaking bigger and sharper. And because he has the ice, he's gonna be a bit slower, but stronger. But I feel like Pokemon has a direction with this. I feel like they're trying to achieve something with this. Like for a Pokemon like Eevee, the fact that it can evolve into different things is so big that they've been building on it. And when you see something like a Vulpix just being able to go to some blizzard and actually turn into a winter Vulpix, it's actually even bigger than Eevee being able to evolve into different things. And I feel like it's because each Pokemon has a different way of adapting to different environments, and when you put them in that environment, they'll change to it. Maybe they'll expand this onto swarms, and when swarms do appear, like dude, like imagine this, in the Alola region, whenever you find Vulpix, it's 100% always the Snow Vulpix. One day your Rotom tells you that a swarm of Vulpix have appeared in this route, and when you go there, because it's a new swarm of Vulpix, they're actually freaking fire Vulpix. And maybe when you take these Pokemon to a desert, and they're in there and going through the hardships of the weather for long enough, they'll adapt to the weather and change form. Like something as small as Exeggutor just getting extra sunlight was able to change its form that much. So I'm actually really excited to see what their direction is with this. Like, dude, give me a freaking Godzilla Tyranitar.